finally I'm talking to you, and it seems so surreal because I was like, once I started like after the fifth podcast that I heard, and then I started watching them on YouTube as well. I was like, okay, one day I'll be there and I'll just share my story too. And I want to share all the things that I grabbed from the podcast and that I made up so I can tell everybody, hey, don't give up. It's a very, very grueling process, but you can do it. If I can do it, everybody else can do it.
Welcome to another episode of the CPA Exam Experience podcast from SuperfastCPA. I'm Nate, and in today's interview, you're going to hear me talk with Alenia. So Alenia got into accounting in a roundabout way. She did her bachelor's in marketing, actually, and then she did her first master's, not in accounting, and then she came back around through finance to do a master's that fulfilled the requirements for her to take the CPA exams. She was very busy in her job, and she was finding the study process very difficult because she didn't have the foundational accounting knowledge of doing a bachelor's and then a master's in accounting. So at some point, she was trying to balance spending all this time trying to learn the foundations of accounting and the CPA exam material while working her very busy job. She saw one of our ads and saw me claiming that you could pass these exams studying just 2 hours a day. So she got our program, watched all the pro videos, and now she's on the podcast. She has a lot of very good tips to share for anyone, but especially because she was essentially starting from scratch when she was studying for the CPA exams. And she just has a lot of really good insights and tips and strategies to share in this interview. This is one of our longest interviews that we've published. And so there's just a lot of really good stuff in this interview with Alenia. So before we get into the interview, I just want to mention basically the free training webinar. If you've seen one of our YouTube ads, that's where it takes you. If you're wondering where you should start with SuperFast CPA, that is where you should start. So the link to one of these free training webinars is down below in the description or in the description of the podcast if you're just listening to this. And that will take you to these 1-hour webinars where we walk through our 6 core study strategies that will make your study process highly effective and highly efficient. So that, like in Alenia's case, even if you feel like you're extremely busy, if you can just find 2 hours a day to study, you can pass your CPA exams efficiently, quickly, and make it relatively stress-free once you get the process figured out. And that's what we cover on those free trainings. So with that out of the way, let's get into the interview with Alenia. You're Central Time?
Yes. I'm
Where are
in
you at? Oh, Texas. Okay.
Texas. I'm in Houston, northeast side of Houston.
You probably didn't get any of the big storm today? No snow there?
No, it's actually pretty sunny and very hot.
Oh, that's awesome. We got like seriously 4 feet of snow today or
What?
last night and today in Salt Lake.
That is crazy. No, it's funny because Texas weather is just one day. There's a meme that says that you go through all the seasons on one day.
Yeah.
So this morning was like rainy and all gray, and now it's sunny outside. And
That's nice. Our winter's been crazy. I mean, it snows here normally, of course, but this winter has just been, like I know by the number of times I got to get the snowblower out. Usually it's 2 or 3 times a winter where it's bad enough. But this winter I've had it out like 10 or 15 times. And today I'm not even sure the snowblower can even deal with 4 or 5 feet.
Wow.
But that's my task after this call is to go out there and try to dig out the driveway. So
Yeah, we get like 1 inch of snow every 10 years.
yeah, I remember hearing when it happened down there a few years ago, because it's like a huge deal when it does happen. Like everything shuts down, right?
Yeah. It's funny because it's like 3 ice cubes and we're all shut down because we don't know how to deal with that. So
Yeah, that's funny. Okay. Well, have you listened to any of these interviews before? Do you kind of know how these go?
like my religion. It was what
Okay.
kept me going every day. And actually, I want to mention, like, finally, I'm talking to you, and it seems so surreal because I was like, once I started, like, after the fifth podcast that I heard, and then I started watching them on YouTube as well. I was like, okay, one day I'll be there and I'll just share my story too. And I want to share all the things that I grabbed from the podcast and that I made up so I can tell everybody, hey, don't give up. It's a very, very grueling process, but you can do it. If I can do it, everybody else can do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm glad we had the episodes so that you could listen to them. And that's the
Mhm.
thing we hear over and over now about the podcast is just obviously we talk a lot of strategy on every episode, but mostly people just kind of use it as their like motivation to keep going type thing.
No, it
So,
was. It was like the day that I was feeling like, no, I can't do it today. I can't. It's just I'm tired. Life's coming at me. No, no, I can't. I would like, okay, maybe I won't listen. I will listen to the podcast just to give myself a break, and then immediately, like 30 minutes into it, I was like, okay, I gotta go back to study.
mm,
So it was a huge motivator for me.
that's okay. No one's ever kind of said it that way. That's a good idea. That's kind of like how because I listen to tons of podcasts. Not this one. I don't listen to our own podcast, but and obviously I'm not studying for the CPA, but I list. There's like sports podcasts, which are kind of entertainment time wasters, and then there's investing podcasts or like news podcasts, and sometimes it takes me a little. I don't know. I kind of resist listening to those ones, even though they're like the useful ones. But once I
Mhm.
start, then I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't know. I just find it interesting. For some reason, there's just something in my mind that some resistance to doing something productive. Whereas you're always down to just waste time, like watch TV or,
Right.
listen to,
It
yeah.
just gets you going, you know? It's like, okay, those people were doing it, we're doing all the work, and for one day you're just, like feeling like you don't want to do anything. You're just when this process is horrible. Why are you submitting yourself to this? There's you're so many on that you're missing. But then you hear them and they're like, okay, I should go back to it. There's a goal. There's like the light at the end of the tunnel, literally. And like one day you're gonna get there. So just, suck it up and do it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. All right. So let's get into your story. I'm excited to hear all this. So, where we always start is when did you start studying for the CPA the very first time? How long ago was it? What was it like in the beginning? Just the whole start from the beginning.
Okay. So I'm not an accounting major at all. I did
Mm,
marketing on my bachelor's. And on my master's, I had a focus on management information system and international business. I had an option to get a second master's between finance and accounting, and I chose finance because I dreaded accounting. And because to me, accounting was kind of like the easy subject on school. So I was like, I want to go into something that I really don't know about, which was absolutely useless because now I don't use my finance degree for anything.
yeah.
um, so I started as an intern on a CPA firm. My goal was to do financial analysis with them. Somehow that turned into being a tax intern.
Mm,
And that's when I started all my, well, I had some accounting background. I'm from Colombia. So I had some accounting background on my work experience over there. So there's like, you can do tax. And I was like, okay. So I started with them, and a year in, I was like, maybe I need to look into this CPA thing and what it is. And I was very reluctant on doing it because I heard the stories and I was like, one of the owners of that company wanted to get his CPA, but he was struggling too. So I was like, I don't know if I didn't at the time. I didn't even know if I was going to stay in the States. So I was like,
Hmm.
I don't know if I were to move abroad, will this be worth it? But eventually, I decided to. Actually, it was my now husband who pushed me through it, and he's like, "No, you got to do it. You got to do it. If you want to keep moving forward, you're so good. You can do it." So kudos to him. He's kind of the reason why I'm almost a CPA now. So he was like, okay, get yourself ready, find out what you need. Of course, I needed all the 30 something credits that I needed to get for accounting. I did that in like a span of 2 to 3 years. And then it hit 2019 probably. And that's like, okay, I nailed the job in a BDO. And I was like, okay, this is the only firm that will provide the review materials for me as part of my benefits package. I have to take on this offer now. So I did that. I got Becker from them, and I was like, okay, how am I gonna do this? And I started. I do tax, so my mindset was, okay, let me do tax first, reg, so I can get some kind of a confidence boost. And then from then on, I will be like, okay, clock's ticking. You got to do it. You got to do it. And I decided to check out the enrolled agent certification first. So I did that just to get my feet wet with the material. And that's when you came in like an angel on YouTube randomly. And I was like, okay, maybe I should try this because I'll join the free webinar. What do I have to lose? Just 1 hour of my
Yeah.
time, probably. And I did that while I was submitting my timesheet. So um I listened to your webinar, and those aha moments that you speak about, they were like all of the time, like boom, 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 boom. I was like, okay, but I still did not believe you at the beginning, and I was like, no, no, no. I need to still watch the lectures because that's not something I cannot do. How can I skip the lectures? So I tried with the lectures. I kept doing the zoning out, and I was like, no, but I still need to watch the lectures. So I did it. In that at that time I switched jobs. I focused on the enrolled agent thing, and I finished it. I am enrolled agent now with the IRS too. Um, I got on vacation, life happened, then my the company I was working at the time, I switched companies. I moved from public to industry, switch tax directors, and with those changes there comes a lot of work, so it was just impossible for me to study. And I would start and then drop it, start, drop it, and that was the entire 2020 for me. I would start, drop it till I decided finally to like switch jobs because I was like, that's not sustainable. I cannot start and start dropping. So I switched jobs, and the only thing I asked from which is my current job that I have now, the only thing that I asked to the hiring manager was like, let me study, and after that, I'm yours. Like, I'm totally committed to everything, but just give me the space. I only need 2 hours a day. Listen to this guy. I just need 2 hours a day, and just give me 15-minute breaks to do my mini sessions. And that's all I need. And he was like, okay, if you can do it like that, I don't have a problem. Try to do it on off season, blah, blah, blah. So really, really, I committed to it on October 2021.
Okay.
Um, and I started with reg because I was already like the material. I had already touched the book like 3 times, so like read the book from start to finish 3 times. So I was like, okay, it makes sense for me to just keep going on this section. But I still watched the lectures. I still watched the lectures because I did not believe you. And once it was like I scheduled my exam for January 10th, 2022. And it was like, I want to say December the 20th, almost the holidays. And I was still I think on Becker, there's like, everything's like my module or my chapter. So it was
Yeah.
8 chapters, and I was on chapter 6 by December the 20th. And I was like, I need to cover business law, which is like 3 entire chapters, or yeah, 3 entire chapters in 2 weeks, so I can do the final review. I cannot do this. I don't have time. So I was like, okay, it's time to relieve the guy. So I dropped the lectures and I started just following your method to the T. And oh my God, what a difference it made. I finished the 2 chapters in like a week and a half. And then I had plenty of time to do the final review, even to like go back and do the cramming on Saturday and Sunday, and reading the notes. And like I did the flashcards, read them all again. I wrote my heart out on those flashcards, which was probably a mistake on that section, but I read them, and it was exam time and or test day, and I remember going there, and I was like, I don't know how it's gonna go. This is my first time. I'll just, it is what it is. There's nothing else I can learn now. So here in Houston, there's only like 2 testing centers, and they're both like an hour away from here, or for where I am staying. Um, and I usually schedule them in the afternoon because of traffic issues, because I won't make it if I schedule them in the morning. So I would stop studying like around 3 p.m., 4 p.m. on Sunday, and just take the night off and take the morning off. And then I remember that I had a protein shake, um, some kind of snack, and a lot of water. And I would drive to the testing center. And I remember going in there, and I was like, I'm not gonna make this. I'm not gonna make it. I'm so nervous. And then I finished the test, and I was like, there was a lot of stuff that I was like clueless about, but there's things that I didn't realize it at the time, but there were many of the questions that were coming to me with the audio notes. And that was just like, I didn't even read that in the book when I was, studying, or didn't hear that on the lectures or anything. It was just from the audio notes. So I was like, okay, well, and it was at the time I was not super into like, I didn't know, I didn't strategize well my score release versus where I took the test. So I had to wait like a month. So my anxiety was through the roof. I was like, okay, I have to wait for a month. And finally, score release date came. I even forgot the day that score release came out. And when it came out, I was like, what? I got a 96. And I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
okay.
That's
I was
crazy.
like, out. I could not believe that. I called my mom. I called my husband. I called my study. Well, I didn't have study mates at the time, but I called everyone I knew that I was on these, and I was like, I got a 96 out of 99. Like, and they were like, oh my God, you're so smart. And I'm like, I'm not, but oh my God. And I was like, Disbelief. And that's when I realized, like, if I made a 96 doing the lectures, doing this and reading the book 3 times, and I don't need to be scoring a 96 every time. I'm not for the Elijah Watts award. If I
Yeah.
if I earn it, great. If I don't, I don't. So I was just like, okay, maybe it's time to really, really believe the guy for the other sections and just make my life a little bit easier. So that's what I did. So my next section was 4. And for that, my first language is Spanish. So, but I never, how do I say this? Like, I never studied accounting in Spanish per se. So, um, I was comfortable studying the material in English, but it was fun to just study it with people that speak my same language. So
Yeah.
we there was this group on, well, there's the Becker Facebook groups and all of that stuff. And then there was a bunch of girls that were in the same boat, Spanish speakers, and hey, let's make a group chat with all of us and discuss this thing in Spanish. And there was like a 30-20 girl chat, but it ended up being like 3 of us only, that were like
Okay.
really committed to studying it. And I did study since, I want to say, February. I scheduled my FAR in April, and I followed the method, everything. And I failed my first try with 74, which was painful,
Mm.
but I was so close. I was just like, okay, the method works. It's just that I was not there. And also, a lot of things happened. My boss at the time quit my company. I had to travel. I work remotely, so I had to travel to the headquarters of the company. So I was a couple of days there, and even though I tried to study, it was impossible for me. I also decided to apply for citizenship at the same time because I thought it was a good idea, and everything just happened at the same time. And um, so I think there were a couple things that kept me out of the loop for this system. That's why I got the 74. But then I think I emailed you, and I was like, okay, I need a
Oh,
retake. What do I
okay.
need to do? Tell me the magic recipe. And you email me the video on the retake, the link to the
Yeah.
video. And so I watched that on, I think it was on a Saturday night. I was like, okay, I had my workout out, and I started doing all of the strategies. I did my 30 set. My I would do, instead of the 30 set of questions, I would do like whatever section had, like, I think 4 was 33 questions, so I would do 33. That would
Gotcha. Yeah.
also help me train my timing on it. So
Hmm.
I would adjust that little piece. But then I did all that. I followed, and I followed the method and your video, and I waited, or I studied for 4 weeks probably. And I sat again in June and passed with an 86. I have my
Wow,
scores here, so I
that's a
don't.
good score. Yeah.
I think um I was really fortunate on that one because I got so good on cash flow. And with there was this pointer on the illustration and anything, so that helped me out a lot. But and I think that's one of the things that helped me on bar, but on the retake. But yeah, I got an 86, and I was like, okay, next up. I remember I drank a glass of whiskey that day because I was like, okay, I'm past the monster.
Yep.
So then I moved to audit, and I was so bored. Oh my gosh. That was the worst for me. Not because it was hard, it was just boring, and
Yeah.
I would nose out on the material really. So but for that I did also follow the method to the T. I would do the mini sessions, mini quizzes. I would do my 2 hours in the morning. Then, since this was so boring, sometimes I had to split the time, and I would do like 1 hour in the morning and then 1 hour at lunch time because I could not sit just 2 hours. So I had to split it out. Um, and then my initial plan was to take it on October the 1st. So, but I finished the material so quickly because I was following the method to the T. I had no distractions. Life was going fine. It was kind of off season. So I finished the material rather quickly. And I was like, I finished like the beginning of September. And I'm like, I'm not about to review these for a month. No. So the next test date that they had available at Prometric before score release date cutoff was September the 6th. And I was like, okay, I'll take it on that day. And if not, I'll take it as a glorified, very expensive mock. And
Hmm.
that's it. And because I didn't even take a mock for audit or anything. I was like, okay, this is going to be my mock. And if I don't pass mock, if I pass, great. And I got a 75. Okay, great. Um, So I was like, okay, now I'm done with the biggest part. BEC is gonna be the easiest. Oh my god, boy, was I wrong. I suffered BEC like nobody's business. To me, it was honestly the hardest section. And I think it was the hardest section for me because none of the topics or none of the chapters are related. Like in FAR, yeah, it's a lot of material. Yeah, it's hard. But at least, the way Becker has it, I don't know about other review courses because I got,
Yeah.
um, they had it set up like you got your assets first and then your liabilities and then you go to the profit and loss accounts and things like that. But and then everything is like kind of intertwined. But with BEC, it's like one chapter has nothing to do with the other. So it was hard for me to grasp the concepts, and um, it was just that. So I took my first BEC on. I was initially gonna take it in November, no, late October. I had to move it because it was mid October and I was just barely on the half of the book. So then I moved it to I think prior to Thanksgiving, but I was still not scoring very well. So I moved it to the early December. And I took it early December. I thought I was ready. And after I went out from the testing center, I was like, okay, it could go either way. I don't know. But if I manage to pass, it will be low 70s, not 80 or anything. It would be like
Hmm.
75 or 76 probably. And I didn't pass. I got a 72. So I was like, okay, bummer. Watched the video again. I think by that time you had posted more videos on that. So I think there's
Yeah.
a there was one that you sent me, the one that you sent me, and then there's a couple more on the pro course because I bought the pro course from you. So I read the whole forum on that, and I was like, okay, maybe I need to apply this and apply that. And um, I studied my heart out. I think I knew those MCQs by memory, like I memorized them. But I made sure that even if I knew the answer, I try to understand what it was, why it was
Hmm.
the right answer. Um, and then I passed with an 86 and I drank an entire bottle of wine.
Nice. That's awesome. So
Yeah.
was that just so you're done then?
Yes, because yes, I'm done now. I'm done now.
Okay.
When I signed up for the podcast, I was waiting on my VEC score
Okay. So
because I think I put on the form that
was it
I
just the last score release? Sorry. We have like a 1 second delay. So I say something and then you can't hear me right away.
that's
Um,
okay.
yeah. It
No, it was on the last score release on the 6th. But I
okay.
signed up.
Okay.
I signed up for the podcast like late January, like the last week of January, because I
Gotcha.
was debating on whether signing up or not. I
Yeah.
really wanted to sign up when I was done, but I was like, I think I got the email, oh, last call to sign up, and I was like,
Yeah.
should I not? Should I wait again for the? I was like, I'll do it. I'll do it, and if not, if I don't pass, well, I'll let him know, and whatever. It is what it is. So I signed up,
Yeah.
but now I do. Um, I I'm done.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yesterday, last night or today was a score release. And yesterday I had 3 of these interviews, and all 3 of them were waiting for their last score. But by
Oh,
yesterday, they still didn't have it. And then last night and this morning, it's like all 3 of them got it and passed. So on the
oh, that's
interview
awesome.
yesterday, they weren't officially done. They were just waiting for the score. Anyways, yeah, kind of similar.
No.
Because, yeah, I saw in yours you said you were done with 3, but
Hmm.
you're actually, yeah, you're done with all 4.
Yeah, yeah. I was waiting for the score on like late January, and I got it on February 6th. So
Awesome.
I cried. I don't know what I did. I just I could not believe it. I still to this day log in every day and just to check that this is my life right now.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's you. I mean, when I passed, it was like 3 or 4 months where it was like a tangible sense of relief, you know, just like almost like a high, you know, just every time I thought of it, like, oh yeah, I'm done studying forever for the CPA. So yeah, and you're only 10 days
Well,
away from when you found out.
I'm still in the process of licensing now, which is very, very different from this. Don't get me wrong. It's totally, it looks like a lot, but it's really not. Texas, I heard it's one of the hardest, or the most. They have like a lot of requirements to give you the license.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to sign a form saying that I will be a good CPA forever, and then
That's
notarize that
right.
form.
Yep.
And then I had to find they I had to have one of my supervisors sign off for me for my work experience, but they had to be, according to what I read, it was like 12 months, consecutive months. And my
Mm.
current boss couldn't do it because he's been with the company for less than 12 months. So I was like, okay, I have to reach out to an old boss. Fortunately, I left there with open doors open. So she was very kind and very nice to have it quickly. So that, and then I had to do a CPE course online, pass the exam on that course, open book, of course, but still, you know. And now I mailed the stuff to the board yesterday, and now they have to email me a link yet do another exam on the rules of
Oh,
professional conduct.
the ethics.
So yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. So I'm still not super done yet, but at least I'm done with the madness. So
Right,
I'm just
right.
glad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Congratulations on being done. That's really cool.
Thank you. Yes, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, just the
Yeah.
yeah, biggest relief, best feeling in the world. So, I have a few questions about, you know,
Sure.
things you mentioned. So, going back to the beginning, you said you read the Becker book basically 3 times. So that's a lot of work on its own. So when you
Mm.
were kind of studying like that, how many hours a day were you like did your studying just consist of just reading the book?
So not really. So the way I operate is I have to and this is why I resonate very much with the super fast method, because the way I operate is I have to divide a big task in little mini tasks so I can
Mhm.
get the whole thing done. So my initial thought was, okay, I'm going to read 10 to 20 pages a day. It's a 600-page book, so I can be done with it in about 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay.
Um, whilst doing the lecture on the side, which I will dedicate like an hour and a half or so to do, and which was more than an hour and a half to do because I would zone out, then rewind. Oh, what did he say? Oh, no, I'm not underlining, I'm not circling anything. Mm-mm. So, and then after that, painful 2 hours. Okay, let me do the MCQs. And I was scoring 50, 40, 60. And I was like, okay, this is really not working. Um, but I would still read the book. And also, I would like try to supplement myself with other stuff because, but when I say supplement myself, at the time when I started, I didn't know about other supplements that are in the market. I will like if since it was reg, I was like, okay, let me go see I'm a tax person, so let me see the instructions on this form and see what the IRS wants. Maybe I can make sense of what the book is saying, and that would help me. I would also ask my peers, like, hey, you know, I don't, and they would try to explain things to me. But it was like really painful to just grasp everything. So
Mhm.
once I switched to, okay, you know, I you were on my ears. Um, it was like I was doing laundry, I was doing the dishes, I was cooking, I was going to get my mail and I was walking the dog and you were on my ears constantly. My husband would have to like, can you please just for 1 minute not listen to the guy?
Yeah.
Please, 1 minute. And I was like, I have every minute counts. And things were started to click. Um, I remember on BEC, and this is because it's the most recent section that there's nowhere in the book that says that, um, econ. Well, I didn't even order the book for BEC to be honest, but um, there's nowhere in the econ section that says that depreciation it's taken out because of the it does not count for inflation or something like that.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. It's yeah.
I got that from the audio notes. It's
Hmm.
that's it just stuck in my mind that there are some things there was a point in my study time that I would finish your sentences because you were all constantly in my mind, in my ears, um,
Yeah.
trying to read that. So that would and that also took time away from the reading, which would tire my brain a lot. Because I like to read. Don't get me wrong. I have books galore, but I like to read for leisure, not painfully.
Yeah.
So that would also make my brain rest from it was a different way of getting the knowledge. And I replaced the reading the book with the notes. Um,
Okay.
because I have a Kindle and I'm mostly on the go because I work remotely and I yeah. So I it was just easier for me to either I did the thing that people did with they printed them and they had them bound at FedEx or something. I did that
Hmm.
and it worked great. But it also helped just to if I was traveling or anything, put it on my Kindle and read them. One of the habits that I got into is that when I started a section, I would read your notes first before actually going into the material. So I
Okay.
would read the notes from start to finish, even if I was like, okay, I'm not following what the notes are saying. I was like, okay, let me just read them all, and then I will start. Okay, chapter one, boom, 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 and that will also gave me some kind of like a baseline to
Yeah.
start with the studying. So that's I don't know if that's what you call planting the seeds, but kind of.
Hmm.
So um, I did that. But yeah, the at the beginning it was just, and again, since I didn't believe you, I was like, no, no, no. I need to do the lecture. I need to, yes, let me be good and do the lecture. But I was still zoning out and I was still like, no, this is not really useful for me.
Yeah. It's kind of like you said. You would read the chapter, watch the lecture, and then still score, in the 50s on the questions.
Hmm.
And it's just because the context is so different. It's on test day, it's going to be questions in Sims, obviously. Trying to learn primarily from the book and the video lectures is doesn't just give you the ability to answer the questions. Like either way, you're going to have to struggle through the questions and learn from the questions. So you might as well just start there. Is just
Right.
how I viewed it after, because I failed far on my first attempt after doing all that as well.
No, it
Yeah.
is. It is also for me. I didn't consider myself a good test taker until I applied the super fast method. Um, I to be honest, I did not have that skill of grabbing a question and like, oh, okay, this could not be it because um I don't know, A and C are they're saying XYZ and that's not the answer. So now you're like a 50% chance of getting it because you're down to two choices.
Mhm.
So I mean those things I by learning from the questions were like key. Specifically on I used to get super confused and I talk about this because of my GMAT experience. When I was doing my MBA, I think I didn't score very high. I think I got a little bit over the minimum for the to get into the school. Um, because the CPA have these questions where they have like the Roman numerals, like 1 and 2, and the choices are
Oh
like
yeah.
1, 2, or 3 are correct, something like that. I would always get so confused on that. But the super fast method, by learning with the question, helped me. Okay, well, let me read. I try to started developing my own strategies also. And like, okay, A, B, and C have number three on, or Roman numeral three on the, let me read not Roman numeral three so I can get rid of more options more
Yeah.
quicker, faster. I don't know. And again, I um I became a better test taker because of that. I believe that's my full on belief that I became a better test taker by reading the questions and understanding why they were right and why they were wrong. And I
Oh yeah, definitely.
kind of like got into the mindset of, I don't know, maybe I'm going over my reach here, but I kind of like get into the mindset of the test giver.
Right.
So you're trying to trick me this way, you're not. So, or at least trying to not to fall into that. Um,
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like anything. Anything you do a lot of, you're just going to get better at. And you just kind of recognize the nuances, or there's just all these little levels to it. Just stuff you can't really put into words. You just get good at answering questions, recognizing patterns, the process of elimination for some types of questions, that you'll just do better on test day just because you're good at doing that. You know,
mhm,
that might add 5 points to your score just because you're good at figuring that out. And then another little thing you figure out might be worth another 5 points, and all that really adds up. And I think that's something that, well, obviously, people just don't think about it like that. You spend 80% of your study time doing exactly what you'll be doing on test day. That's just, that sounds almost too obvious. But most people spend most of their time watching the video lectures over and over, reading the chapter, and that kind of learning doesn't just directly translate to test day like doing the questions in Sims does.
also when you look at the examples on the book, or when they're trying to go through a full on question on the lecture, they teach you one method. You go to the MCQ, and then they have another method to solve the same problem, and then they have you go to another MCQ, and it's the same concept but a different method. And I was like, okay, at what time am you know I need to pick one to learn it, because if this works, then I can use just one method to just, answer all of these 10 questions that they have. And that's kind of what I did. Like once I found a method that worked. Sometimes I made up my own methods. I was like, screw that. I can't do that. Um, I remember when I was doing inventory on FAR, my method was just like, I put all of this information on the right column, on the left column, and then this information on the right column, and then my answer will be right minus left, something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
that would, help me also. I'm married to this method now. I don't need to know all the other methods that they're trying to show me. Because I get what they're trying to do. They want you to pass. They have that warranty that you guaranteed you
Right.
pass. If not, we'll give you more time. We'll extend your time, whatever it is. Um, so they want to teach you everything that they can. They want to push all the knowledge that they can, and that didn't work for me. And there was a point where I was like, the mnemonics thing. I had sometimes I rearranged the mnemonics so it would make more sense to me, or it would be a word that I could actually pronounce. Or I made my own mnemonics.
Yeah.
Um, so things like that.
Yeah. That is a good point. Because that happened with me a lot. You come up again when you're doing just questions over and over, you will find your own way of answering certain types of questions. Um, that I don't know. I never saw taught anywhere in the lectures or anything. And I would almost like, okay, I swear all this is this piece and this piece. And like, okay, this gets to the right answer every time. And this is so much more simple, yeah, you just discover stuff like that by spending most of your time on questions. So I just, yeah, it makes too much sense almost. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
And
almost like
even
too obvious.
sometimes Excel can give you the answers, you know. For I remember also for depreciation, I didn't have to learn all of the, even though I had a method already nailed down for them. Um, there's formulas in there that are out there that you can use. So just learn the formula
Yeah,
and just type it in on on exam day, and it's quicker, and you can use that extra time for other questions that are a lot. Like one of my, I took like 1 hour to solve one sim because it was huge, but you know that allowed, I could do that because I gained so much time during my first two testlets on par.
exactly.
So I
Yeah.
had a lot of the time that I could dedicate to my sims testlets.
Yes. That's, I mean, yeah, that's by far the biggest strategy for Sims is finishing the MCQs as fast as possible so that you have 2+ hours. Because you just don't know what you're going to see on the Sims. You know, you might get one that's a complete nightmare, like you described. It took a whole hour.
Mhm.
And yeah, if you only had an hour and a half for all the Sims, you know, you wouldn't have done very well in the other ones or whatever. So on that topic, how did you weave in practice Sims to your study process? Did you do a little bit each day or just on the weekends or not much at all? How'd you use them?
So the way I um, spread out my study sessions was, you know, I did your 90 minutes with the new material and then 30 minutes for um, the um, the review, daily review. In that daily review, I would, if I finished the new material like in, I don't know, 70 minutes, probably now a little over the 90-minute window, then I would do like one sim. And if not, I would just focus on the sims during the weekends. Um, and to be honest, there was a point that I stopped practicing many sims because I was like, if I started looking at the sims as many, like 10 MCQs just in one.
Yep.
Um, and I was like, okay, if I can do 10 MCQs in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, then, you know, I can allocate 15 to 20 minutes for a sim. And then on the weekends, what I would do is I would do my new material session in the morning. And then in the afternoon, I would do two, just I would do two sessions with three sims each, 2 to 3 sims each. And that was pretty much it. But my biggest thing with the sims was once I started seeing them as like a 10 MCQ kind of thing
Mm-hmm.
package, that just made the whole difference because I started to approach the sims like one thing by one by itself, and then I would move to the other. It will also help me keep myself organized with with the exhibits because they can get out of hand.
Yeah.
Um, so I was like, okay, for this specific question, I only need exhibit A and B. So let me just pull up only A and B. Um, and then, you know, from then on, I kind of like, that's how I kind of I was never very good on timing on my sims. So I quickly realized that. So I was like, okay, I need to just work on my on being fast on the MCQs. And then I can have a lot of time for to work on the sims.
Yeah. And so were you typically finishing the MCQs on test day like in under, I mean, I'm sure it was under 2 hours.
So I think um, the on my first bar, that's where I took a little bit over 2 hours on my first two testlets, and I didn't have much time um to allocate to the Sims, but I still had, I mean, didn't have as much time as on the other sections that I took. But at the end of the day, I still did have like an hour, almost 2 hours to finish the whole thing. And none of my tests, I never run out of time. Um, in I think in reg, I left the test. I clicked submit, and I still had like 19 minutes on the clock.
Mm.
On far, on my first bar, I had like 4 minutes on the clock, and then on my second bar, I had 1 second on the clock. That was the one with the big sim.
Yeah.
So I had 1 second on the clock, and then for audit and BEC, my first BEC, I had like 44 minutes on the clock. Um, I probably that wasn't very good. I didn't pass, of course, but I think I should have spent more time writing. But I was tired, to be honest. But on the audit
Yeah.
one, it was like I had 9 minutes on the clock. So I think one of the main things is to learn how you time yourself, pace yourself. Nothing's gonna give you that. Not the mock tests, not whatever your review course is telling you to do. The only way to do it is if you do the test that you review with the amount of questions on the testlet that you're going to do. So that's why I
Yeah.
kind of tweaked the 30 set to oh, it was rec, so it was 38. I would try to do 38 in that same 30-minute window because that's what I wanted to do on test day.
Yeah. That's a good idea. That just minor adjustment, like whatever section you're studying for, the daily set of 30 should really just be that number specifically. But yeah, in general, if you've heard every episode, I say this almost every episode, those sets of 30 just solve so many problems in advance. Like your
Mhm.
timing. Like you said, it's the only way to get really good at your timing. Well, which just means you're just good at answering MCQs. You know,
Mhm.
yeah, it just solves a lot of things on test day.
Which is, I mean, and it's, if you think about it, your MCQs are 50% of the grade. So you really want to get that, at least be stronger on that side. And then you will have another 2 hours to solve 8 problems, which sounds like a lot, but it's really a glorified MCQ.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I started to look at it. And once you, because I felt like a lot of people, and myself included, when I started, my biggest fear was the Sims. Oh my God, the Sims, oh, how am I going to do this? They're so scary. They're so huge. And they're really not. There's just glorified MCQs. The only thing that I want to add on that is when you have a research question, specifically on reg or FAR and audit, I would say the only way I could, and this maybe comes from me being a tax person, I have to research a lot. So the only way that I could get really, really good on those was to actually go through the code. At least on reg, you can do that also on FAR and audit. If you sign up for the NAFBA thing in ISCPA, they give you the tools, so they give you the actual stuff that shows up on the exam,
Mm-hmm.
the authoritative literature. And I tell this to all of the people that studied with me: be good at that, because that's almost like 3 points.
Yeah.
Um, get familiar with the code, and oh, you don't need to read the whole thing. Just read the little subsections, the titles, read the subtitles, and get familiar to where things are at, because that will
Yep.
save you so much time on test day. I mean, that was, for me, that was like, boom, key. Because I didn't even know how to tackle those questions until I was like, okay, maybe if I approach them the same way I approach my tax research. And then I was like, okay, well, what if there's things that I'm a tax accountant, but I do international tax. So none of the stuff that I do is tested.
Yeah.
So there's things that I'm not familiar where they are on the code. So um, the only way that I could do is just, go ahead, go there, get myself familiar with the contents of the thing. I didn't read the whole thing. I'm not about to read the 600 pages of code that there is. Um, I just got familiar to with where things were, and that just helped me so much on test day. And because I immediately knew where they were, and then they give you this little tool and this little checkbox where you can, it's the advanced search where they can specifically look for stuff in specific articles.
Yeah.
Use that. That really narrows down your search and
Right.
helps you find what you're looking for. So use the checkbox and get familiar with the code.
Yes, and that's a really good tip because those research sims can be kind of a landmine. Like it's only one sim point or whatever, like it's only like one point, but it's very easy if someone's not familiar with the layout of the authoritative literature. It's easy to go on like a goose chase and waste a half hour on a sim that's only worth like 1 point. Um,
Right.
so it's both, it's free points and a huge time saver if you just kind of get familiar with where things are before exam day. Yeah, that's a good point. So sounds like you said you went in and watched our pro course videos and you were kind of following the strategies exactly. So you would do the planting the seeds in the morning, end with a set of re-review questions. You do mini sessions throughout the day, like you mentioned, listen to the audios a ton. You made flashcards and
Yes.
okay.
I used Brainscape to do that. Um, there's a bunch of people that I share those flashcards. I apologize in advance because there's some bad words in there, but that was just the way I could. I had to that I could use to memorize. I remember this is gonna sound bad, but there's one of the chords on rag that you have to learn, and it was like a I don't know, but I associated it with a UTI. Why is that? I don't know,
Yeah.
but that's how I was able to remember it. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and or and like for instance, the carry forwards that are now like forever. My flashcard literally says Wakanda forever because that's how I would remember stuff.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so a lot of I would always share them, and if anyone wants to reach out and wants my flashcards, I will definitely share them. But just with that caveat, you know, you're probably not going to understand them because that's the way they're supposed to be made. Very personal and
Exactly.
very you know um I made up, and in some instances I made up my own formulas for stuff. Um, because again, going back to what I said before, Becker just have 10 methods, or your review course may have 10 methods to teach you one thing, and then once you get married with one, just stick with it, stick with it.
Hmm.
I also use a supplemental course mainly for FAR and BEC. I don't know if I can say the name, but um,
No, you can't. I mean, doesn't yeah, bug me. It doesn't
so
matter.
I use Universal CPA for
I've heard
because
people
they
like that. Yeah.
it's the visual learning experience. So
Hmm.
in some topics that I would not get on Becker because they were just so. I would even try to read or like listen to that little piece of the lecture, and I couldn't. I would go to them and try to make sense of, and they have this thing where they break things in steps and they show you like a roadmap. It looks like
Mm.
the ideal is because it looks like a little road.
Yeah.
And they were really helpful on that because I'm a visual learner too. I did marketing. I'm very creative in that sense. So I prefer when things are in a cartoon and they are just a little bit more. It was very helpful for FAR and BEC. I didn't have it with Reg, so with Reg it was all you and Becker. And with audit, again, since I didn't have much time to review and I passed on the first try, I was like, okay, I don't need this anymore. So,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good tip about the flashcards is they should almost be in your own language type thing. Like
Mhm,
almost to the point where if you handed them to somebody else, they almost wouldn't make sense, or a lot of them wouldn't. Because it's just however you can remember or understand, like you said, a formula. Yeah, mine were exactly like that. Or I would make flashcards on just pieces of formulas. Like whatever was the confusing part of something, I would, try to explain it to myself till I understood that one piece that I kept forgetting. And I would just make, what's the piece of the weighted average cost of capital that you always forget? And that would be like one flashcard.
mhm.
And then because I write it like that and then get the flashcard, then I obviously don't forget it anymore. Just stuff like that.
Yeah. I remember also making one on, there was this big formula for I it was on BEC about the PE ratios, and I realized when I was deep into the studying that, the numerator was just another formula from that I had up there. So I was just like, oh, formula on flashcard number, blah blah blah, and I would put that in there.
Mm-hmm.
Or I would associate things. Like in FAR, non-monetary transactions are very similar to like-kind exchanges in REX. So I was like, okay, this is like-kind. This is like-kind. And I literally wrote that down on the flashcards. I was a little bit more organized on my flashcards than what you recommend because I wanted to be able to go back and search. So
Mm-hmm.
I did like one set for R1, one set for R2, and things like that because that would help me also keep not confuse this topic with this other topic, and it would allow me to go back and search for specific thing when I was reviewing my MCQs where I got wrong and when I got it right. um, so I do have my flashcards a little bit more organized, not like because I know you mentioned that, oh, just don't organize them by chapter, just make the flashcards, and when you hit 20 or 30, just make another set.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do that, but and then I was able to go back. Oh, I didn't remember this from that. Let me add that to that specific set so I could, when I was doing my mini sessions,
Yeah.
create my own flashcard, and then I would go back to that topic. Oh, I remember that I keep making mistakes on this question. Let me go back and read the flashcards on that. So that was helpful for me. But yeah, making them online was a lifesaver because
Right.
I still have the ones that I started like right here, and I was like, no, this is not practical for me. I'm always on the go. So I would make them on my phone. I would make them on my iPad. I would make them on on my laptop wherever I was. So being able to just, I'm waiting here in line for lunch. Let me just go back to read the flashcards. That was a huge thing for me.
Yeah, I think you just convinced me that I think it is better to make them by topic because, like you said, yeah, it makes a lot more sense because you're doing re-review the sets of 30. It's like, okay, this type of a problem, I haven't really seen this before on bonds. So then I can add this flashcard to my bonds deck. And
Mhm.
that makes more sense than just throwing it into a random. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I do like that better. There's a lot of reasons for that,
Mm.
why that would be better, actually. What about so with Brainscape, did you use the color coding, like scoring yourself as you went? Or how'd you
Not
deal with that?
really. Not really. Because I didn't do the way I studied them, or the way I would read them is I would read them question and answer right away. It was just
Okay.
more helpful for me, because I wasn't taking that as a way to quiz myself. For that, I had the
Mm-hmm.
MCQs in, my own limited practice test. I was like, oh, I'm seeing these, but I was like, oh, this is related to this. And then I would go to the answer and see, I was right, but then, I'm missing this other piece that I wrote that it must be important for something. And that's how I would
I see.
use them to study.
Now, this is getting specific, but you can't do it that way on the app. Like if you were out in line at the grocery store, could you do it, review them that way on the app where it shows you both?
You can if you go
Oh,
into edit mode.
oh, I see. Okay.
So
Yeah.
if you go into edit mode, it will show you. And the app is a little bit more limited.
Hmm.
But if you can also go into your like Safari or Chrome on your phone and open them as if you were on a desktop, and
Gotcha.
it's pretty easy enough. The visibility is a little bit more limited too if you do that in your phone, but when I do, if I was on my phone or on my iPad, it's probably because I was just doing a 5-minute session and I was just reading like 3 to 4 flashcards, and that was it.
Hmm.
So I didn't mind. I didn't really mind. One thing that I wanted to mention that is totally unrelated to this is, how you mentioned that we have our evenings free? Yeah, we have. I had my evenings free for the most part. But there were some times that I would not wake up on time, and I was like, okay, I'll do my session. I'll get off work at 5, and then study from 5 to 7, and then after that, I would still have my evening free. However, I would I would always, like, out of whatever, if I was just gonna be like in the couch watching TV or something, I had my iPad with me and I would open um this is for people that have Becker only, but there's this app that Becker has, a game that is a really dumb
Oh
game.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, I would recommend doing that if you have nothing else to do. Like if you're watching a movie, just open the app and do it. Um, they have a ton of questions that are not on the review course. They may be outdated. There may be all super old questions that they have not removed from the game, but they are extra practice.
Hmm.
And there are questions that are not going to come up as often on your unlimited practice tests because they're not already they're being removed from the course. So use that. That was a very and I treated that also as one of my mini sessions
Yep.
because those games are like 10 questions or 3 to 5 questions, and sometimes they make you work. So it was a really good tool for me. I wanted to mention that.
Yeah. Well, and that goes back to one thing you said earlier where you would always be listening to the audio notes and, your husband would be like, okay, take a break. And you're
Hmm.
like, no, every minute could be the difference. And that's how I viewed studying from my phone. Because it's just like you've committed thousands of dollars to this process. Um, you're taking time away, weeks, months away from stuff you'd rather be doing. Like, why wouldn't you just rack up every extra minute that you can studying from your phone? Like you said, when you're just sitting there and you're whatever, husband, wife, boyfriend, whatever's watching TV, or you're at the bank waiting in line. It's just like every little minute, you could be progressing in the material a little bit. So
Absolutely.
it sounds like that's how you treated it.
Yeah, pretty much. Again, you were on my ears nonstop. Even there was a point in time that I had a shower speaker and you were on the shower speaker. Like it was it was
That's
nonstop.
funny.
Um, I think it broke because, those things are very flimsy. I think I got it for 10
Yeah.
bucks on Amazon or something. It broke, and the day it broke, so it was like blasting on the bathroom, and my husband was like, "Please make it stop." But yeah,
Yeah,
you
that's
were on my ears all day long, every day. Like I have that was the thing that was the thing that sold me on Superfast. After, the aha moments and the
hmm
audio notes, because I would commute back in the day, I would commute an hour each way. So I was like, okay, that's an hour that I could be like listening to stuff non-stop. So that was one of the things that and the aha moments was like, okay, the zoning out and that thing. I was like, yes, yes, yes. It was like a
Yeah.
bad commercial. It was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's how I feel. That's how I feel. Um, and then, that just made the difference for me specifically. I even to this day, I tell people, because people ask me like, how did you do it? And how did you manage to score so high? Because if when I started this process, I was like, okay, I even did I'm a very I plan a lot. So I was like, okay, like you said, it's thousands of dollars. Okay, how much am I gonna invest on these tests? So it's $300 a piece. How many times am I allowed to fail in a budget? So I
Right.
think I budgeted to fail twice per section. And I only failed once in only two sections.
Yeah.
So um, that was people ask me like, "How did you do it? How did you do it?" And especially because I'm not an accountant. And the only thing I say is just, have you heard of SuperfastCPA? CPA? Like do the webinar. Do the webinar. If that doesn't convince you, then maybe it's not for you. I
Yeah.
did use I do also, tell them that I use Universal CPA, and I tell them that my main review course was Becker, and that's the three main tools that I used. I couldn't use anymore because I had tutoring for a BEC, but that's a different story. But um those were the mainly three tools that I used to pass. And but mainly on Superfast was the study method, the study strategy, and the audio notes. The audio notes are a godsend. Like if I haven't said that enough, I mean, have you heard about the Superfast CPA and the audio notes? Like, just listen to them nonstop. Again, laundry, cooking, even in the shower. I was
Yeah.
using your notes because it was every minute counts. Specifically when you are an accountant, when busy season hits, it's just hard, 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 hard to study. Um, so every minute counts. And also, what you say on you have to study every day and don't skip a day, that is like amen to that. Like, I think that's what part of the reason why I failed far for the first time, because since I traveled a lot during that period of time that I was gonna test. I think between the traveling, I was just too tired, and I skipped one day or two. And even if I didn't skip a day, I made the mistake of not reviewing because I didn't have enough time. So I chose to learn new material over reviewing. After that, I was like, no, even if I don't study new material today, I must review.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer to just review instead of getting new material in my head, because I don't want to forget I don't want to waste all the time that I've invested before forgetting by just adding more material.
Yeah.
So that was another key point for me. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's another big benefit of being done. You don't have to listen to the audios anymore. That just sounds painful to listen to them that much. I mean,
Yeah.
like it's really valuable. I think the they're short enough that you cover the entire section in 2 or 3 or 4 hours, depending on the section. So hitting everything that many times throughout your study process really ingrains the main points of each topic. Whereas if they were like 40 hours long, you'd only get through them once, so there's
Mhm.
no repetition factor. So, I mean,
Right.
we kept them short for a reason, for that reason. But at the same time, it's obviously not fun to do. So glad you're
No,
glad you're through with
you
that.
you
You'll
have
never have
no
to listen to
idea.
them again.
You have no idea how glad I am that I am able to like put back my Spotify app to use.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Because
sure.
I started listening to the podcast on Spotify, but then I got distracted with, oh, maybe I can listen to one song. And then I was like, okay, no, I need to drop it and watch it on YouTube only. And I used the podcast as a motivator when there were days where I was like, no, I can't do it. So I would put it on the TV on the back, while I was cooking or when I was folding laundry or something. And it would like just energize me, like, oh, okay, need to finish laundry, then go back to the computer and cram, cram, and do my session like the way I'm supposed to do it, because I can do it. If these people do it, I can do it. Um, so
Yeah, that's
yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I'm really glad everything helped. I mean, we covered a lot. You gave a lot of really good tips. The last thing we always end with, though, is if you had to narrow it down, what would be your top 3 tips for someone who's still kind of struggling with the process?
Um, my first of all, um, just know and embrace that that's gonna suck. You know, it's gonna suck for a long time. You're not gonna
I like
you're
that.
with the method. Yes, you're still gonna have some breeze of a life, but you're still gonna be committed to this huge thing. So just own and know that it's gonna suck. Nobody's gonna understand how much it's gonna suck because they're not living it. So don't listen to anybody trying to, oh, you can do it later, or why are you doing this? I don't get it. Like I have one of my best friends tells me that we've been friends for 11 years, and she's told me ever since I met you, you've been studying, you've been in school, you gotta stop.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, with that said, this is the last time I'm studying for anything, honestly. But what I'm going with this is just know that it's gonna suck. There's nothing else you can do about it. The only thing you can do is make the process a little bit more bearable, which is the strategies and the study method that you're providing. Number two, I want to say, um, learn to recognize what works for you and what doesn't. Nobody has a perfect formula for things. Um, for me, I found myself that helping other people would help me know um, where I was lacking. So I would go into the Becker Facebook groups in my case to just, someone posted this question. Maybe I can answer it and see if I know the answer. And that would also, oh, you know what? I need to revisit this topic because I don't have the answer for this. So helping other people also helps you. But also know that no other person has the perfect formula. You just have to learn what works for you and what doesn't. Um, I truly believe that SuperfastCPA CPA is a great method, but maybe it's not the method for you. So, but if you use some of the strategies, I didn't. I mean, I used the method to the T, but there were some things that I tweaked, like the
Hmm.
MCQs, like the number of MCQs that I did, that I think it worked for me. Um, and the third I want to say is, oh my god, I had it on my mind. Um, oh, don't give up. Just don't give up. I've read horror stories where people, they've they've sat for one section like 10 times, 7 times, and they're still at it. They're still there. There's this lady I follow on Instagram that she took audit like 7 times, and she lost credit on far. I would have
Yeah,
given up.
that's bad.
And
Yeah.
just don't give up. Just don't give up. You'll get there. Um, find what works best for you, and just trust the process. Trust the process. Don't be like me and believe the guy from the first minute, because I wasted a lot of time on reg because I didn't need a 96. I just needed a 75. So I know that people say, "Oh, you got a 96 because you're a tax person." Well, yes, I am a tax person, but I don't deal with this material in
Right.
my daily job. So it's not
Yeah.
really that. It's not that way. So you just trust the process. If you really, if I actually recommended Superfast to someone over the weekend, and they told me yesterday that they
Mm,
and I was like, just she's been trying to do rec ever since I was doing rec, which is a year ago.
okay.
And I told her, just trust the process. Good luck. Not everything's gonna work for you specifically, but because I did study in the mornings sometimes. I didn't wake up at 5 a.m. I'm not about that, but I did wake up early in the morning sometimes. But sometimes I had to like tweak my day, so I had an early dinner, so I had to like wake up at 5 a.m. or something like that. So things like that happen. So just we'll find out what works for you. Help others also, because that's gonna come back to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like point number one, embracing that it just is going to suck. Because it really makes doing the things that it's going to take easier if you've just accepted that beforehand. Kind of like you said
Mhm.
with the Spotify example, you're like, well, I'm going to listen to one song, then I'll get into the audio notes. And eventually you're just like, this is just easier to just not kid myself and just until I pass, this is what I'm listening to. That's just what it's going to be. And
Mm.
it's just easier that way. And then you're done sooner. It's just out of your life months sooner than if you're kind of doing it halfway.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I mean, if I weren't failed far or BC, I would have been done like in 9 months, honestly.
mhm,
So if you think about it, and if you I mean, life's gonna always like a friend was telling me, "Oh, congratulations. Tell me how you did it." I kind of like went over what I did and all the things that I did, your program, the other supplements that I did. Um, and she's like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna start in April because now I'm super busy." And I'm like, "No, you're just starting on
yeah,
the wrong foot.
yeah,
Um, it's you're gonna be busy in April again, and you're there's always gonna be an excuse for you not to do it." I
right,
was in that mindset for the longest time. I think it was about 2 years. And I was like, yeah, that's when I was like, okay, I'll start studying. And then I dropped it because everything got busy and I just couldn't deal. Until one day I just woke up and I said, you know what? It's going to suck. I'm not, I'm not going to have much of a life, and I have to plan myself um, around it. Oh, I also wanted to mention one of the things that I did, because one of the things that I was like, how am I going to fit all this information in 2 hours? That was one of the things. Again, I plan a lot, so I have to like feed myself. I have to like learn the patterns that I of my own learning and see, okay, how much time, how much material can I cover in these 90
mm,
minutes? So I quickly realized that I could cover somewhere between 20 and 30 MCQs for new material in those 90 minutes. So before I started studying for any section, I would go into my review course and I was like, okay, chapter one has this module, and this module has 60 MCQs. Okay, I have to break down this module in like 3 days or 2 days. So that would also help me to keep things realistic for test day.
yeah,
Um, One of the things that I grabbed from the podcast, I don't remember his name, but he was saying how he was um, scheduling his tests around the score release date. That was huge for me because then I wouldn't have to waste my time studying for another section without knowing
right,
my score. So I would always plan to sit for cutoff dates so I would know immediately. And that would also give me like a 1 week break in studying, without and I would do always like I would do what I call light studying, which was like one MCQ session a day. Doesn't matter if it
mhm,
was in the morning, doesn't matter. I was not trying to learn anything at that point. I was just trying to see that my knowledge kept being fresh for that week that I was waiting my score. Um, but yeah, so organize yourself, be realistic on the goal that you want. Make sure that you're test ready. Don't trust whatever Becker says that, oh, you're exam day ready. No, just trust yourself that you're never going to feel ready, but you are. So you just gotta like take a leap on that. And again, just own that it's gonna suck.
Yeah, all really good tips. So yeah, we've got a long time, so I don't want to take up much more of your time, but I appreciate you doing this. People are going to find this really valuable, like you did with the other episodes,
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm really glad to hear everything helped. So congrats again on being done.
Thank you. Thank you. I told my friends, you'll see me one day on that podcast. um,
Yep.
and when I told them that we were scheduled to go on the podcast, they were like, I knew you were gonna do it. They're still struggling. These are the friends that I made while I was studying part. They still haven't passed far. Um, but they're still there. I promised them I was gonna help them. So um, but yeah, I'm just so happy I'm done. And I'm not gonna deal with this again. I'm ready to
Yep.
burn this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just have a ceremony, burn it all.
So that was the interview with Alenia. I'm sure you found that very helpful and informative and hopefully inspiring and motivating. If you did find this helpful, please take a second, like the video on YouTube, leave a comment about a takeaway you got from Alenia. Or if you listen to these mostly just on a podcast app, please take a second to leave a rating and a review for the podcast. And then mostly share this with someone else you know who's also working on their CPA exams, because these interviews collectively are the most helpful resource available for people trying to figure out their own CPA study process, because it is the effectiveness of your daily process, not so much just spending time in the material. You have to know how to strategically study, learn each topic in question context, because that's what you'll see on exam day. And from there, you can start really understanding how the material will translate to questions and simulations on exam day. So thank you for watching or listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.